Intermittent fasting is great, and intermittent fasting offers great results, but only if you do it right. In this video, I'll uncover the top intermittent fasting mistakes so that you're not making them. Hey Wellness Warrior, I'm Dr. Zyrowski, and we want to make sure that we're doing intermittent fasting correctly so that we can get the amazing results that we see people getting online and, these different YouTube videos out there that say, wow, this person lost all this weight and they improved their health and decreased inflammation. We want those results, right? But we just have to do it right. It's that simple. And remember, intermittent fasting is a strategy. It's not a diet. So as we use this strategy to improve our health, we want to make sure that we aren't finding ourselves in a position getting a bunch of these symptoms. Okay, let's talk about the first one, can't lose weight or gain weight. Okay, when intermittent fasting, it's very easy to get to a state where you're a little bit ravenous, right? A lot of hunger. And when that happens, what do? You say, hey, I'm breaking my fast and I'm gonna break it good, right? And so you tend to overeat. Well, the reality is you can intermittent fast 22 hours a day and you can still overeat. It's possible. So though intermittent fasting allows us to get in a place where we don't have to focus on our calories as much, but if you're finding yourself unable to lose weight or you're even gaining weight while intermittent fasting, you could be in a place where you are eating too much and it's time to cut back, but it's also time to make sure that you're cleaning up your diet, which leads us to our next problem. And that's an inflammatory problem in the body. And this is so common today. Remember, most of the chronic diseases that exist in the world today all start with an inflammatory problem. And what I find, and you can tell me in the comments below if you've heard this before, but have you ever heard it's like, Jerry over there, he goes to the gym so he can eat whatever he wants, right? Or even you hear this all the time with women who are pregnant, right? She's pregnant, so it's a time when you can just eat whatever. Oh, really? Well, you're growing a baby. Do you want a baby made of ice cream and donuts, or do you want a baby that's developed off of good, healthy food? Well, the same thing goes for the guy who goes to the gym. Just because you're working out, it doesn't mean that you can just live life like a free-for-all. Think of this. Skinny people, all the time they get cancer. All the time they have gastrointestinal issues, thyroid issues, inflammatory issues, brain health issues, the list goes on, okay? So just because we're doing intermittent fasting, it does not allow us to be in a place where we're eating processed foods, we're eating artificial ingredients, dyes, tons of sodas and candies and all that stuff. So it's common too, just like overeating, that somebody says, well, you know what? I intermittent fasted, so I get to reward myself. And I'm gonna reward myself with candy bars and cakes and pies and all the things. But that's gonna lead us to a place where we aren't getting results, which if you're rewarding yourself with a whole bunch of unhealthy carbohydrates, that leads us to our next problem, and that is hunger and dizziness, okay? Now there's a lot of symptoms that can come out of eating too many carbohydrates, okay? Once again, intermittent fasting is not a diet, it's a food strategy. But if your food strategy sucks, then you're gonna have a really poor time intermittent fasting. And if you're struggling with intermittent fasting, a lot of times it's not what you're doing during the fast itself, it's actually what you're doing during the eating window. And so if you're eating a lot of carbohydrates, for instance, this can increase a hormone called ghrelin, the gremlin, which is telling you that you're hungry all the time, right? And so when that hormone is dysregulated, you constantly are stimulated. Hey, I need food, right? Now, because of the carbohydrates throwing the metabolic hormones off, this could cause you to overeat. This could cause you to crave a whole bunch of bad foods. But the other thing that it does, besides just cause a lot of irritation and maybe mood instability and things of that nature, it could cause blood sugar highs and lows, which could lead to symptoms like dizziness and fatigue and your brain just not working when you're fasting, okay? So we have to make sure that we keep our carbs to a fairly low point. And when you're eating carbs, they should be healthier ones. I always say, think sweet potato, not white bread, okay? Let's talk about stress, okay? Is your intermittent fasting causing too much stress in your body? Are you pushing too hard? And then you're having a whole lot of issues with inability to sleep at night. You're having issues to where your body just feels like it has an enormous amount of fatigue. Do you have a lot of anxiety, right? There's a lot of symptoms that can come from fasting if you already have a lot of stress in your body and then you're pushing the stress even further by doing too much fasting. I find most of the time it's people are not sleeping well at night. So there's a few ways around this. First of all, cut your fasting hours back, right? Because if you're fasting too much and it's causing too much stress, it even causes tons of hormone dysregulation in your body. So cut your fasting hours back. The other thing that you can do is you can add in B vitamins and adaptogens, okay? If you're not familiar with what those are, I'll put something about it in the description below so that you can click on it and read more. But that will help you adapt to stress a little bit better. And then hopefully over time, you can open up your eating windows. But remember that your body needs time to adapt, especially if you're coming from a place where, hey, you're not eating that healthy, and that's okay, because that happens to all of us, right? We weren't all born eating healthy. We have to kind of go on this journey and slowly fix things up and clean up our diet and clean up our lifestyle. So if that's the case, cut your fasting back and then slowly work into it as you adapt, right? You could ruin your metabolism. How does this happen? Well, just because you're fasting, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be eating like you're supposed to be. We talk about not overeating, but you can't undereat either. I have people tell me all the time, well, you know, if I want to fast for 2-3 days, is it okay if I have, let's say, you know, a small piece of protein? Well, no, that you can't. You shouldn't do that, because that's actually turning from a fasted state to a calorie restrictive state. Can I have this during my fast? Something that's going to break my fast, whatever it is, right? The reality is, if you're breaking your fast and you're turning yourself into calorie restriction, the same thing is not happening physiologically in your body during a fasted state as it would in a calorie restrictive state. So we don't want to go there. And the other thing too is that we don't want to ruin our metabolism, okay? Eating too little over a long period of time will slow down your metabolism. A prime example that I love to talk about is that show, the TV show, The Biggest Loser. They starve these people in order to lose tons of weight for good TV ratings, of course. And unfortunately, these individuals years later tend to just gain all the weight back. But when they check their metabolism, the amount of calories that they can consume in a day without gaining weight is unbelievable. It's somewhere for a full-grown man around like 800 calories a day, where it should be like, you know, 2,000, 2,500, something like that. And so you can ruin your metabolism by taking fasting and pushing it too hard and eating too little. Dehydration. This is a big one. And this is a big one because not too many people suspect it. With fasting, dehydration becomes a big issue, because when you're fasting, you tend to think, well, I'm not eating. Well, sometimes drinking water doesn't even come to mind. So you need to make sure that you're drinking adequate amounts of water, right? About 40 to 60% of your body weight in ounces. That's a good measure to go off of. But it's not just about water, it's also about electrolytes, because hydration isn't just about consuming fluid, consuming water, it's also about consuming proper amount of electrolytes so that your body is appropriately hydrated. If you have symptoms of dehydration, they can be all over the place. They can look like blood sugar instability. You can have dizziness from it. You can have hunger from it. You can have all kinds of crazy things going on, right? You can get shakes. We can have you in a place where you have overwhelming fatigue, both mentally and physically. So adding in electrolytes along with proper water intake is very, very important. And this, in many cases, is a make it or break it. If you're screwing this up, it will make fasting miserable for you, and it will be very hard to continue on with it successfully. And once again, I'll put a link to some different electrolytes, if you're not familiar with the topic, in the description below that I like to use personally. So these are the top things you should watch out for. The top intermittent fasting mistakes. Share your intermittent fasting story in the comments with me below. Give the video a thumbs up. And also, I'm Dr. Zyrowski, and if you like this video, I think you'll like this one over here next.